They say history doesn't just record, it forgets. Scattered across the centuries are stories of inventions so extraordinary they seemed ready to reshape the world, only to vanish without a trace. Some were destroyed by war or buried by time. Others, perhaps, were hidden deliberately, their secrets too dangerous or disruptive to survive. From miraculous materials and lost technologies to machines that defied logic, these creations stood at the edge of genius and mystery. Each one leaves behind a whisper, a fragment, a question. What if it had endured? Join us as we uncover 20 lost inventions that continue to spark wonder and speculation, testifying to humanity's boundless creativity and reminding us that the past still holds secrets waiting to be rediscovered. Greek fire, they didn't want everyone to know what it could do. Some say the recipe was scrubbed from records, its makers sworn to secrecy. Imagine standing on a wooden ship at night when suddenly a stream of flame rips through the darkness and slams into the enemy's hull, clinging and spreading while buckets of seawater do nothing but feed it. That was Greek fire, the Byzantine Navy's secret, an incendiary feared for its uncanny ability to burn on water and alter the course of sieges. The origin reads like myth. Chroniclers point to an engineer named Kallinikos, a refugee from Syria, who brought the method to Constantinople in the late 7th century. Still, the archaeological and textual records suggest the Byzantines refined an older tradition of incendiaries. What mattered was less a single inventor, and more how the knowledge was held close, passed in strict confidence to imperial arsenals and trusted sailors rather than written down. Exactly what Greek fire consisted of remains debated. Modern researchers favor a petroleum-based blend, crude oil mixed with resins and sticky additives, which would behave like a primitive napalm rather than simple burning oil. Contemporaries speculated wildly. Quicklime, sulfur, even saltpeter were all suggested. With no surviving formula, the weapon sits between history and legend. Its use was as clever as its chemistry. The Byzantines mounted bronze siphon tubes on ships to spray the burning mix, hurled sealed pots as grenades, and used handheld projectors during boarding. This tactical versatility made it lethal in coastal fights. Seeing a neighbor's deck consumed by unquenchable flame could shatter morale as surely as it destroyed timber. Enemies tried countermeasures, chains, damp hides, and aggressive boarding, yet attempts to recreate the original recipe mostly failed. By 1453, the precise knowledge had vanished. Some whisper the recipe was deliberately erased to prevent future horrors. Others say it simply died with the craftsman. Either way, Greek fire is a chilling reminder that certain inventions are buried because they were too dangerous to keep alive. And perhaps somewhere, a secret ember still smolders in the dark. Baghdad Battery. They say history is written by the victors, but sometimes it's rewritten by those who want certain discoveries forgotten. Deep in the sands near modern-day Baghdad, archaeologists uncovered something that may have challenged everything we thought we knew about ancient technology. And for decades, some believe, the truth about it has been quietly buried. In 1936, near the ruins of ancient Ctesiphon, researchers unearthed a small clay jar, unremarkable at first glance. Inside was a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and traces of bitumen sealing the top. To most, it looked like a container for scrolls or sacred offerings. But a few sharp-eyed scientists saw something else. The jar's odd structure, a metal core inside a conductor, separated by clay, looked eerily similar to a battery. That idea came from a German archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig, who in the 1930s proposed that this jar might have been used as a galvanic cell, an ancient power source. When he filled replicas with vinegar or grape juice, they produced small electrical currents. Koenig suggested the Parthians or Sasanians might have used them to electroplate gold and silver onto jewelry, centuries before modern electricity was even imagined. The experiment worked, at least in theory. Later tests by engineers and museums confirmed that the jars could indeed generate voltage. And yet, instead of rewriting textbooks, the discovery was quietly pushed aside. Critics claimed there was no evidence of electroplated artifacts or wiring from that era. Others dismissed the battery theory as pseudoscience. The jars, they argued, were merely ritual vessels. Still, a question lingers. Why such fierce resistance? Why are some artifacts that challenge the official timeline so quickly labeled impossible? The Baghdad Battery remains locked in that gray zone between fact and forbidden idea, an object that could prove ancient people knew how to harness electricity long before history says they should have. Maybe the jars were innocent relics, or maybe they were evidence of a spark, a secret lost, hidden, or deliberately erased that hints humanity's grasp of power began far earlier than we dare admit. Damascus Steel. They say some secrets weren't lost, they were buried. And if any lost invention fits that description, it's Damascus Steel, the mysterious metal that shaped some of the deadliest and most beautiful blades in history. For centuries, it carved its legend across battlefields, only to suddenly disappear, as if someone wanted the secret to vanish. Forged in the ancient Near East from wood steel imported from India, Damascus blades were instantly recognizable, their surfaces rippled with hypnotic water-like patterns known as ladder and rose motifs. Warriors and nobles coveted them alike. These swords could slice through lesser blades, bend without breaking, and hold an edge sharp enough to cut silk mid-air. To this day, metallurgists struggle to explain how ancient smiths achieved such impossible balance. Strength, sharpness, and beauty in one. The name Damascus carries its own mystery. Some say it comes from the Arabic word damas, meaning water, a nod to the blade's liquid-like sheen. Others claim it was named for the Syrian city where the finest examples were traded, a crossroads of empire and secrecy. But ironically, the heart of the process lay further east, in the smelters of southern India, where the Wootz crucible method produced ingots with rare purity and trace elements that modern steelmakers can barely replicate. By the time medieval chroniclers like Al-Kindi and Al-Biruni described it, Damascus steel had already achieved mythic status. It was said to cut cleanly through stone or sever a rifle barrel with a single stroke, maybe exaggerated, but not by much. Modern tests on surviving blades show tensile strengths beyond what should have been possible for the time. And then, the knowledge vanished. By the late 1800s, no one could reproduce the true Damascus pattern. Some blame the loss of ore deposits rich in vanadium or tungsten. Others whisper of deliberate suppression, that certain guilds or empires hoarded the method, destroying records to keep the power exclusive. Today's Damascus steel knives mimic the look, but not the magic. The real secret, the process that gave those ancient swords their ghostly strength, remains locked in history's shadows. Maybe it was forgotten, or maybe, just maybe, someone made sure it never returned. Antikythera mechanism. They say history hides its greatest secrets at the bottom of the sea. And maybe that's no coincidence. Maybe some knowledge was never meant to resurface. When divers stumbled upon a mysterious corroded lump of bronze near a small Greek island in 1901, they had no idea they were about to uncover one of the most advanced devices of the ancient world, and perhaps one that someone, somewhere, wanted erased. Inside the wreck of a Roman cargo ship near Antikythera, the divers found statues, pottery, and this strange mechanism, unlike anything they'd seen. It was encrusted, broken, forgotten. When archaeologists brought it to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens, it sat quietly for years, dismissed as debris. Then, in 1902, a sharp-eyed researcher noticed something shocking hidden in the corrosion: a gear wheel. That single discovery changed everything. The device, now dated to the 2nd century BCE, shouldn't have existed. It was a complex assembly of bronze gears, crafted with precision impossible for its time, a machine that predicted eclipses, tracked planetary movements, and charted the cycles of the sun and moon. Some call it the world's first computer. Its design is astonishing. The mechanism originally sat inside a wooden case with dials on both sides, one showing the zodiac and solar calendar, the other charting eclipse cycles, and even the dates of ancient athletic games. Turning a simple crank would set the entire system in motion. A universe in miniature. Scholars believe it was built during the Hellenistic period, perhaps on the island of Rhodes, where inventors like Hipparchus and Archimedes once worked. And yet, after this one example, the technology disappears completely. No records, no successors, nothing for over 1,000 years. Why? Some say the knowledge was simply lost. Others think it was deliberately buried, hidden or destroyed as empires fell and dogma rose. Machines that could predict the heavens may have seemed too dangerous, too powerful for their time. Today, the Antikythera mechanism remains one of history's greatest enigmas, proof that our ancestors reached a level of sophistication we're only beginning to grasp. Maybe it sank by accident, or maybe, just maybe, it was meant to be kept out of human hands, until we were ready to find it again. Roman concrete. They say the Romans built things to last forever, but maybe not the knowledge of how they did it. Some claim the secret behind their unbreakable structures wasn't lost by chance. It was buried, hidden. Because what if the formula that allowed concrete to heal itself, to defy time, was something later empires didn't want rediscovered? Walk through the ruins of ancient Rome, the aqueducts, harbors, and towering domes, and you can still feel that mystery. 2,000 years later, their concrete stands strong while our modern bridges crumble after a century. At the core of it all is Roman concrete, a mix of volcanic ash, lime, rubble, and seawater, a material so durable it outlived the empire itself. The first hints of its recipe appear in texts like Vitruvius' De Architectura, written around the 1st century BCE, describing how the Romans used volcanic ash from the Bay of Naples to create hydraulic concrete that hardened even underwater. This invention powered the empire's rise, from the Pantheon's immense dome to seaports that still hold their shape beneath Mediterranean waves. What made it so special? Unlike modern cement, which eventually cracks and fails, Roman concrete seems alive. Scientists recently discovered that its mix contained unreacted lime clasts, tiny particles that, when water seeps in, trigger chemical reactions that fill and seal new cracks. In other words, Roman concrete can heal itself. It's also earthquake-resistant by design. Builders layered different densities of aggregate, creating flexibility where it mattered most. Their walls and domes weren't rigid, they were intelligent, shifting with the earth instead of fighting it. And then, the formula vanished. As the empire fell, so did its engineering secrets. Medieval builders replaced Roman ingenuity with new methods, and over time, even the memory of self-healing concrete faded. Some say trade secrecy or religious power struggles buried that knowledge. Others think it was deliberately suppressed because it gave too much independence to engineers and builders. Today, scientists are trying to reverse engineer what Rome already perfected 2,000 years ago. But maybe the real question isn't how it worked. It's why that knowledge disappeared, because sometimes history doesn't lose its secrets, it hides them. Stradivarius Violins, they say some knowledge wasn't lost, it was silenced. Among the whispers of forgotten genius, one name always surfaces: Stradivarius. For centuries, his instruments have produced a sound that seems almost supernatural, warm, clear, and hauntingly alive. Yet no one, not even the most skilled modern luthiers with all their science and precision, has been able to replicate it. Some believe the secret was deliberately buried, hidden by time, greed, or power. In 17th and 18th century Cremona, Italy, Antonio Stradivari crafted over 1,000 instruments: violins, violas, cellos, even guitars. About 650 survive today, each one worth a fortune and treated almost like a relic. Stradivari experimented endlessly, using spruce for the tops, maple for the backs and ribs, willow for the inner supports. And chemical analysis of surviving instruments shows traces of copper, aluminum, and calcium in the wood, elements that don't appear naturally there. Some researchers think he treated the wood with secret chemical baths to alter its density or acoustic response. Others think those treatments came from government mandates to prevent worm infestations, an accident of history that produced perfection. And yet, the sound of a Stradivarius remains an enigma. In blind tests, even expert musicians sometimes can't distinguish it from a modern violin. But that hasn't dimmed its aura. It's made the mystery stronger. If science can't measure its superiority, maybe its magic lies somewhere beyond science. Today, these instruments are priceless. The 1721 Lady Blunt violin sold for nearly $16 million, and others are locked away in museums or played only by the world's most elite musicians. Attempts to recreate Stradivarius' tone have all fallen short. Theories range from Little Ice Age wood density to unique varnish chemistry, but no one truly knows. Some say the secret was intentionally erased, guarded by the Stradivari family, or perhaps taken to the grave to keep imitators away. Others whisper darker ideas, that the church, guilds, or powerful patrons suppressed the formula, fearing its potential. Whatever the truth, the Stradivarius still sings, an echo from an age of brilliance, wrapped in a mystery that refuses to die. Maybe it's not that we can't rediscover his secret. Maybe we were never meant to. Water clock. They say time itself can be rewritten, and maybe that's exactly what happened. Some believe the secrets of ancient timekeeping weren't simply forgotten. They were erased. Among the relics of vanished ingenuity stands one of the simplest yet most profound devices ever created, the water clock, or clepsydra. A vessel of flowing water that could track the hours long before gears, pendulums, or quartz existed. But perhaps it did more than mark time. Perhaps it revealed how much our ancestors really understood about the universe. The earliest known water clocks appeared around the 16th century BC in Babylon, Egypt, and Persia. Civilizations obsessed with the heavens and their cycles. Simple bowls with tiny holes slowly drained water, each level marking the passage of time. As basic as it seems, this device transformed society. It let priests schedule rituals, judges limit speeches, and astronomers map the skies with astonishing precision. But over time, as new powers rose, the technology was rebranded, rewritten, and, some say, quietly pushed aside. Different cultures refined the design. Greek engineers like Ctesibius added siphons and gears. In China and Korea, elaborate towers used flowing water to drive wheels and strike bells. The Islamic Golden Age saw the most intricate versions yet. Water clocks that displayed planets, animated figures, even astrological movements. These weren't toys, they were cosmic machines, early attempts to model time itself. Yet, something strange happened. Despite their brilliance, these inventions vanished from mainstream history. When mechanical clocks emerged in medieval Europe, many earlier designs were ignored or dismissed. Some historians think the water clock's precision, especially in its advanced Eastern forms, threatened established narratives about where true science began. Modern physics now tells us time bends, flows, even stops, but the ancients knew time flowed, literally, through their hands. Maybe they understood more about the nature of the universe than we give them credit for. So, when you look at a modern clock, ticking away in perfect rhythm, remember, long before machines ruled our hours, people measured time with water, gravity, and genius. And maybe, somewhere deep in history's vault, the blueprints for something greater were quietly washed away. The Library of Alexandria's wisdom, they say the greatest secrets aren't destroyed. They're erased, buried beneath time, rewritten by power, or quietly removed from history altogether. And perhaps no story embodies that better than the Library of Alexandria, humanity's first great vault of knowledge, and maybe its most deliberate disappearance. Born in the 3rd century BCE under Ptolemy II Philadelphus, the library was more than a building. It was a statement. Housed within the Museion, a temple devoted to the Muses, it aimed to gather every written work in existence. Ships arriving at Alexandria's port were searched for scrolls. Any texts found were copied, with the originals kept and the duplicates returned. It wasn't just scholarship, it was intellectual conquest. Whoever controlled knowledge controlled civilization. At its height, the library was the heart of the ancient world's learning. Thousands of scrolls lined its halls, perhaps 500,000. Thinkers like Eratosthenes, who calculated Earth's circumference with near-perfect accuracy, and Zenodotus, the first known librarian, walked those corridors. It was a place where math, astronomy, philosophy, and poetry intertwined, the ancient equivalent of the internet, but written in ink and stored on papyrus. But brilliance often threatens those in power. Around 145 BCE, Ptolemy VIII expelled many scholars, scattering their knowledge across the Mediterranean. A century later, Julius Caesar's siege fire consumed Alexandria's docks, and, according to some accounts, thousands of the library's scrolls. Others claim the real destruction came later, through Roman neglect, Christian purges of pagan knowledge, and finally Islamic conquest, when political and religious authorities sought to rewrite civilization's script. Some historians argue the scrolls were relocated, fragments of that knowledge resurfacing in Constantinople or the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Others whisper darker theories, that the knowledge itself, on advanced science, lost technology, even forbidden philosophies, was deliberately hidden or destroyed to keep power in the hands of a few. Today, the Library of Alexandria stands not as a ruin, but as a warning. Knowledge is power, and power decides what survives. Maybe it wasn't lost to flames at all. Maybe it was buried, sealed away until humanity is ready, or allowed, to read it again. Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower. They say the world runs on hidden truths, and that some discoveries are erased before they can change everything. Few stories embody that mystery more than Nikola Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, a massive structure built in 1901 on Long Island. It was supposed to change the world forever, and some believe that's exactly why it was destroyed. At first glance, Wardenclyffe looked like a futuristic dream made real. Funded by J.P. Morgan, Tesla claimed it would transmit wireless messages across the Atlantic. But what he didn't advertise openly was far more radical. Tesla envisioned a system that could send not just signals, but power, electricity, through the very Earth itself. No wires, no energy companies, just free, limitless power for the entire planet. The tower itself rose nearly 190 feet high, capped with a giant metal dome and anchored by a network of underground tunnels meant to reach deep into the Earth. Tesla believed he could tap into the planet's natural electrical resonance, sending energy through the ground and atmosphere the way radio waves travel through air. He called it the World Wireless System, and if it worked, it would have ended the age of wires and monopolies forever. But that dream came at a cost. When Tesla asked Morgan for more funding, the banker famously refused. Why, after all, would someone who owns stock in energy companies fund a project that could give electricity away for free? By 1906, the money had dried up, and Wardenclyffe stood silent. In 1917, the tower was demolished and sold for scrap, officially to pay debts, or prevent it being used by German spies during World War I. Yet, even today, whispers remain. Some say the government stepped in to stop Tesla's research once they realized how dangerous or disruptive it could be. Others believe fragments of his work were confiscated after his death, hidden away by powerful interests. What if Tesla really did glimpse a way to harness energy from the Earth itself, and the world wasn't ready to share it? Wardenclyffe Tower may be gone, but its ghost still hums with the same question. What if they didn't just let it fail? What if they made sure it did? Mithridate, universal antidote. They say not every cure was lost by accident. Some were erased on purpose, hidden behind royal vaults, burned in libraries, or buried with their makers. Among those whispered secrets lies Mithridate, the so-called universal antidote, a mysterious potion said to make a person immune to any poison. Its story is tangled with power, paranoia, and a king who refused to die. It begins in the 1st century BCE with Mithridates VI Eupator, ruler of Pontus, a man surrounded by treachery. His father was poisoned, his mother may have plotted against him, and from that moment he became obsessed with outsmarting death. He started taking tiny doses of deadly substances, carefully conditioning his body to resist them. Over years, he created what became known as Mithridatism, immunity by exposure. But the king didn't stop there. He ordered court physicians and alchemists to combine the world's most potent ingredients, herbs, minerals, animal extracts, into one ultimate antidote. The result was the legendary Mithridate, a mixture of over 60 components: honey, opium, cinnamon, frankincense, myrrh, even crushed viper flesh. Taken with wine, it was believed to neutralize every poison known to man, For centuries after his death, emperors, generals, and even popes demanded it. Apothecaries guarded the formula like holy scripture, adjusting it over time into the famed Theriac of Venice. But somewhere along the line, the recipe vanished. Some say it faded naturally as modern medicine replaced superstition. Others aren't so sure. The formula appeared in royal archives and was later censored or lost as centralized powers rose. A true universal antidote, a cure that could make someone untouchable, would have threatened those who ruled through fear, assassination, and control. If poison lost its power, so did the throne. Today, Mithridate lives on in legend, half myth, half memory, a symbol of mankind's oldest dream, immunity against death itself. Maybe it was never real science, or maybe it worked too well, and that's why it disappeared. Because a world where anyone can survive poison is a world where kings can't rule. And that's one cure history might not have been ready for. Chronovision, they say time itself hides its own secrets, and maybe some people have tried to hide theirs along with it. Every now and then, strange stories surface, of travelers from centuries ahead, of mysterious photographs, of forgotten devices that could bend reality itself. But what if these tales weren't just dismissed as myths by accident? What if someone, somewhere, made sure they stayed that way? The legends of time travel go back farther than most people realize, from 19th century accounts of people vanishing and reappearing decades later, to men who seem to know the future before it happened. These stories pop up like echoes, scattered across history. Some were proven hoaxes, others clever misreadings of fiction. But every once in a while, a detail slips through, too specific, too consistent, as if pieces of a larger truth were deliberately scattered. Then there are the machines. The most infamous is the Chronovisor, allegedly built by a Benedictine monk and a team of scientists in the 1950s. It supposedly let users view any point in time, past or future, like tuning into cosmic television. The Vatican, it said, seized the device and declared it classified. Another is Die Glock, or the Bell, a rumored Nazi project combining anti-gravity, radiation, and time distortion. Officially, it never existed, but eyewitnesses swore otherwise, and the scientists involved either vanished or died mysteriously. Skeptics called these stories urban legends, patchworks of exaggeration and wishful thinking. But there's something eerily consistent about them. Missing inventors, destroyed blueprints, confiscated evidence. It's almost as if time travel isn't impossible, just inconvenient for those who benefit from keeping the timeline exactly as it is. Maybe the real story of time travel isn't about gadgets or wormholes at all, but about control. If someone could rewrite history, erase events, or even peek into the future, they'd hold the ultimate power. And history shows one thing clearly. Power like that never stays public for long. So perhaps time travel did happen. Maybe it's still happening. And if that's true, the question isn't, where are the time travelers? It's, who made sure we'd never remember them? Starlite. They say some discoveries don't vanish. They get buried, locked away, bought out, or erased from history before the public ever learns what they could have changed. One of those stories is Starlite, a mysterious, heat-resistant material invented by an unassuming British hairdresser named Maurice Ward. His creation could allegedly withstand temperatures that melt steel, shrug off blowtorches, and even survive nuclear-level blasts. And then, it disappeared. Ward developed Starlite in the 1970s and 80s, working out of his home workshop in northern England. The formula, said to involve 21 ingredients, mostly organic polymers mixed with ceramics and borates, was kept secret even from his closest associates. When exposed to intense heat, it reportedly expanded into a foamy carbon shell that reflected heat so efficiently it could protect almost anything beneath it. In TV demonstrations, Ward coated a raw egg with Starlite and blasted it with a blowtorch for minutes. When cracked open afterwards, the egg was still cool and uncooked. Engineers and scientists were stunned. NASA and the UK's Atomic Weapons Establishment reportedly tested samples and confirmed its incredible thermal resistance. Some said it could have revolutionized space travel, firefighting, even military defense. But Ward refused to hand over his formula. He insisted on retaining 51% control of any deal, claiming he didn't trust corporations to use it responsibly. He turned down offers, delayed agreements, and guarded the secret until his death in 2011. No patent was filed. No verified replication exists. Some believe his formula died with him. Others think it didn't. Rumors swirl that aerospace agencies or defense contractors might have quietly acquired samples, reverse engineered them, and classified the results. Freedom of information, requests for documents tied to NASA's alleged testing have come up empty, feeding the theory that Starlite's potential was deliberately buried. After all, a material that could make spacecraft invincible, protect cities from fire, or render weapons obsolete isn't just valuable, it's dangerous to the balance of power. Maybe Maurice Ward was right not to trust the world with it. Or maybe the world decided for him. Because sometimes the most revolutionary inventions don't vanish by accident. They're erased on purpose. Flexible glass, they say the Romans didn't just build empires, they buried secrets. Some inventions, they say, were so advanced, so dangerous to the balance of power, that they were erased from history itself. One such story is that of flexible glass, vitrum flexile, a mysterious, bendable, nearly unbreakable material that appeared briefly in ancient Rome, and then vanished without a trace. According to ancient accounts from Pliny the Elder, Petronius, and later Isidore of Seville, the tale begins during the reign of Emperor Tiberius Caesar, 1437 AD. A humble glassmaker presented his creation before the emperor, a glass bowl unlike any other. To prove its resilience, he threw it to the marble floor. Instead of shattering, it only dented. Calmly, the craftsman lifted it, tapped the mark with a small hammer, and the bowl returned to its perfect form. Tiberius was astonished, but also afraid. When he asked the inventor if anyone else knew the secret, the man proudly said no. According to legend, that was his final mistake. Fearing that unbreakable glass would destroy the value of gold and silver, and the economic order of Rome itself, Tiberius ordered his execution and the destruction of his workshop. The secret of vitrum flexile supposedly died with him. Centuries later, historians debated whether the story was true or myth. Pliny himself admitted it was more widely told than well authenticated. Yet, some modern researchers have speculated that the craftsman might have stumbled upon an early form of borosilicate glass, like the material used in modern heat-resistant cookware and spacecraft windows. If true, it means the Romans may have held technology centuries ahead of their time, and then deliberately erased it. And that's where the whispers begin. Some say the emperor's motives went beyond economics, that materials like flexible glass represented a scientific knowledge ancient elites weren't ready to share. After all, an unbreakable moldable glass could have revolutionized architecture, weaponry, even optics. So what really happened to vitrum flexile? Maybe it was lost to time, or maybe it was buried under orders, because when something threatens the people who rule, whether in ancient Rome or now, it's never the story that breaks, it's the person who tells it. Cloudbuster, they say the government doesn't fear what doesn't work. It fears what it can't control, and that's exactly what some believe happened with Wilhelm Reich's Cloudbuster, a strange device from the mid-20th century that, if the stories are true, could manipulate the weather itself. The official narrative calls it pseudoscience, but the way it was buried, the equipment seized, the books burned, the man silenced, makes you wonder if there was more to the story. What it was. Reich was no ordinary inventor. A former student of Freud, he claimed to have discovered a form of natural energy he called orgone, a life force supposedly present in all living things and in the atmosphere. The Cloudbuster was his attempt to tap into it. The device looked crude. Long, hollow metal tubes connected to copper hoses, with one end pointed skyward and the other submerged in running water. Reich believed that the water grounded and directed orgone energy, allowing him to draw it from the sky and influence cloud formation, even make it rain. How it worked, or was supposed to. Reich tested the Cloudbuster repeatedly. The most famous experiment took place in Maine during a drought in 1953, where he claimed his invention ended the dry spell and brought rain within hours. Farmers swore it worked. Scientists rolled their eyes. Reich insisted he was manipulating the Earth's energy field. balancing nature itself. But as he gained attention, he also gained enemies. Suppression and aftermath. By the mid-1950s, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, launched an aggressive campaign against Reich, labeling his orgone research as dangerous quackery. His laboratory was raided, his devices destroyed, and tons of his writings were literally burned by federal order, a rare act of outright censorship in American scientific history. Reich was later imprisoned, where he died before his theories could be fully tested or replicated. Legacy and conspiracy. Officially, the Cloudbuster never worked. Unofficially, it said the government took a keen interest in weather modification soon after Reich's fall. Coincidence? Maybe. But if a man truly found a way to pull rain from the sky, a way to control weather without machines or chemicals, that's not the kind of power any government would leave in public hands. Reich's Cloudbuster might have been fantasy, or it might have been silenced precisely because it wasn't. Viking Sunstone. They say not every discovery was lost to time. Some were erased on purpose. Hidden beneath layers of myth and rewritten history lies the story of the Sunstone, Solarstein, a mysterious crystal said to have guided Viking sailors through the fog and storm-tossed seas of the North Atlantic. A tool so precise it could find the sun even when the sky itself was gone. And then, like so many ancient marvels, it vanished without a trace. The earliest clues come from 13th and 14th century Icelandic sagas, where the sunstone is described as a small precious stone used to locate the sun on a cloudy day. In one tale, a host lifts the crystal toward the heavens, and through its shifting glow, the hidden position of the sun becomes clear. Later, church inventories list sunstones among their treasures, but never say what they were for, almost as if someone wanted the knowledge remembered, but not understood. Centuries later, scientists revisited the legend. In 1969, Danish archaeologist Thorkild Ramskau proposed that the sunstone might have been a natural crystal like Iceland's spar, calcite, or cordierite, both of which can polarize light. When held to the sky, these minerals reveal patterns in sunlight even through clouds or fog, effectively allowing a navigator to pinpoint the sun's location within a few degrees. Modern experiments have proven it works, at least in theory. And when a fragment of Iceland's spar was found in a 16th century shipwreck off Alderney, the mystery deepened. Could this truly have been a Viking compass made of light? But something doesn't add up. No confirmed Viking-era sunstone has ever been found. The sagas hint, the stones vanish, and then silence. Some researchers think the technique was deliberately suppressed as magnetic compasses became dominant. Others whisper that it was guarded as sacred knowledge, reserved for elite navigators or royal explorers. After all, whoever controlled such a device would hold dominion over trade, discovery, and the seas themselves. Maybe the sunstone was just legend, or maybe it was the kind of discovery civilization only allows to exist until it becomes too powerful. A compass of light lost not to time, but to those who decided we didn't need to see where the sun truly was. Archimedes' heat ray. They say the victors write history, and sometimes they erase what doesn't fit their version of it. Buried beneath layers of legend and skepticism lies one of the strangest tales from the ancient world. Archimedes' heat ray, a weapon said to harness the power of the sun itself. Was it an impossible myth? Or a discovery so dangerous it was deliberately hidden away? During the siege of Syracuse, 214-212 BC, Archimedes, the legendary mathematician and inventor, supposedly unleashed a weapon unlike anything the Romans had ever seen. According to later accounts, he positioned a polished bronze or copper mirrors along the city walls, angling them to reflect and concentrate sunlight onto Roman ships approaching the harbor. Within moments, the vessels caught fire, engulfed in searing light from a man who had turned the sun into his ally. Curiously, none of the contemporary sources mention this device. Not Polybius, not Livy, not Plutarch. The story only surfaces centuries later, written by authors like Lucian of Samosata and Anthemius of Tralles. That gap has led skeptics to call it fantasy. Yet, what if those early records were removed or suppressed, not because the weapon was a myth, but because it worked too well? Modern experiments show that it might not be as impossible as it sounds. In 1973, a Greek scientist named Ioannis Sakas used 70 bronze mirrors to ignite a wooden ship 50 meters away. In 2005, an MIT team replicated the test with over 100 mirrors. Under perfect alignment, they produced flames on a stationary target. Even Mythbusters, after calling it busted, admitted that under ideal conditions, it could work. So why did such a powerful idea vanish from warfare? A weapon that could focus sunlight into fire would have been revolutionary, clean, silent, and devastating. Some say it was too difficult to replicate. Others whisper that it was quietly buried. After all, what empire would want its enemies to rediscover a weapon that could burn fleets without a single arrow? Maybe Archimedes' heat ray never existed. Or maybe it did, and it proved too dangerous to survive. Because sometimes, history doesn't lose technology, it hides it. Polybolos, the repeating crossbow. They say history is written by the victors, and sometimes, the victors decide what not to write at all. Buried in the margins of forgotten manuscripts is the story of a machine that shouldn't have existed in its time. A weapon so advanced, it defied the age of bronze and iron. They called it the Polybolos, the many-thrower. A repeating ballista said to fire bolt after bolt with mechanical precision, centuries before the first gun was ever forged. Origins and description. The tale begins in the 3rd century BC, when Dionysius of Alexandria, a Greek engineer working under Philo of Byzantium, designed a siege engine unlike anything before it. The Polybolos wasn't just a ballista, it was an automatic one. It featured a clever system of gears, chains, and a rotating magazine that could load, draw, and fire continuously. Every turn of its crank launched a bolt, and another slid into place. In essence, it was a mechanical ancestor of the machine gun, built nearly 2,000 years before the idea was invented. How it worked. Its brilliance lay in its simplicity. The operator turned a windlass that moved a sliding platform, the mensa, which pulled the string back while dropping the next bolt from the magazine into place. When it reached full tension, the mechanism released automatically, firing the projectile and repeating the cycle. To modernize, it reads like the blueprint of industrial age engineering. Yet, it came from the hands of men in tunics and sandals, disappearance and doubt, and then silence. No Polybolos has ever been found. Historians debate whether it was ever mass-produced or if the technology was simply lost. Some say it was too complex for the materials of the time. Others suspect it was deliberately suppressed, a weapon that could have changed the balance of power between city-states, empires, and kings. Legacy and hidden truth. Why, after such innovation, did ancient warfare return to simpler siege machines? Perhaps the Polybolos worked too well. A weapon that could unleash a storm of arrows might have been seen as unnatural or uncontrollable. Maybe the ancients built a machine of terrifying efficiency and then buried it, not because they couldn't use it, but because they feared what would happen if they did. Some inventions, after all, aren't lost to time. They're erased by choice. The Lycurgus cups, nanotechnology. They say not every secret of the ancients was lost. Some were buried in plain sight, hidden behind the walls of museums and cloaked in academic labels. There exist artifacts that challenge everything we think we know about ancient technology. One of the most haunting examples sits quietly in the British Museum, the Lycurgus cup, a 1600-year-old Roman vessel that changes color with light, behaving like something forged in a nanotech lab, not a 4th century workshop. Origins and description. Believed to have been made between 290 and 325 CE, the Lycurgus cup is a so-called cage cup, a masterpiece carved from a single block of glass, its outer lattice depicting the myth of King Lycurgus, punished by the god Dionysus and entangled in a vine. At about 16 centimeters tall, it's breathtaking even by Roman standards. But its real magic lies not in its form, but in its physics. The cup shifts from emerald green when viewed in reflected light to blood red when illuminated from behind. How could artisans of the late Roman Empire possibly achieve such an effect? Material and hidden science. Modern scientists have discovered that the glass is infused with nanoparticles of gold and silver, each only about 50 nanometers across. These metallic particles scatter light in a way that creates its color-changing effect, a principle that modern engineers only began to understand in the 20th century. In other words, the Lycurgus cup is an ancient example of nanotechnology, created at least 1,600 years before the word nano even existed. Function and symbolism. Some scholars think it was used during elite banquets, possibly in Dionysian rituals. The myth carved into its surface, a warning against arrogance before the gods. Others say it was a showpiece, a technological demonstration hidden behind mythological art. Legacy and the silence that followed. What's most unsettling isn't how it works. It's that no other artifact like it has been found. The technique, the workshop, the craftsmen, all gone, with no surviving record of how they did it. It's as if the knowledge was erased on purpose, or guarded so closely it died with its makers. Even modern scientists with electron microscopes struggle to replicate it perfectly. Maybe the Lycurgus cup wasn't just a work of art. Maybe it was a warning. A reminder that every age hides its miracles, and that sometimes, when humans create something too far ahead of its time, history doesn't preserve it. It covers it up. Leonardo's aerial screw. They say some inventions weren't destroyed by time. They were erased on purpose. Hidden in plain sight, tucked between sketches of anatomy and machines of war, lies one of history's strangest blueprints. Leonardo da Vinci's aerial screw, a 15th century design that looks uncannily like a modern helicopter. But instead of changing the world, it vanished quietly into Leonardo's notebooks. Never built, never discussed, almost as if someone decided mankind wasn't supposed to see it fly. Origins and vision. Between 1494 and 1499, while serving as a military engineer for the Duke of Milan, Leonardo drew his vision of human flight in what's now known as the Paris Manuscript B. Unlike his famous art, this sketch wasn't a portrait or painting. It was a machine, a circular platform, a central vertical shaft, and a spiraling linen canopy reinforced with starch, like a screw meant to twist itself upward into the air. Next to it, Leonardo scribbled an explanation. If this screw is well made, it will make it spiral in the air and rise high. It was more than a drawing. It was a challenge to gravity itself. Design and mechanics, inspired by the Archimedean screw, which moved water through rotation, Leonardo flipped the idea. If you could push water downward, why not push air downward to lift upward? The design was simple in concept, but genius in form. Men on the platform would turn cranks to spin the helical blade, its linen surface cutting into the air like a modern rotor. Theoretically, it should lift, a flying screw centuries before the helicopter. The practicality and the silence that followed. Modern scientists agree the materials of Leonardo's time made it impossible. Linen, reeds, and human muscle could never overcome the weight or friction. But here's the strange part. Leonardo never tried to build it. Why? For a man who built automatons and siege machines, abandoning such a groundbreaking idea seems out of character. Some say it was impractical. Others think it was discouraged. After all, a flying machine in the hands of a single genius, during an age of kings and wars, might have been seen as heresy or a threat. Legacy and the missing thread. After Leonardo's death, his notebooks disappeared into private collections for centuries. Pages were lost, drawings scattered. And yet, this one survived. A single glimpse of a mind that might have reached for flight long before the Wright brothers. What if this wasn't an accident? What if early discoveries of flight were quietly contained, long before they could reshape the world? Because when you look at the aerial screw, its spiral reaching toward the sky, you can't help but wonder, maybe the dream of flight didn't wait for modern science to be born. Maybe it was hidden until the world was ready, or until someone decided it finally could be. Tesla's oscillator. They say the most dangerous inventions aren't the ones that fail. They're the ones that work too well. And few stories illustrate that better than the legend of Tesla's oscillator, a small steam-powered machine from the 1890s that Nikola Tesla claimed could shake buildings, generate endless power, and maybe even split the Earth itself. Today, it's buried in obscurity, dismissed as myth. But the way it disappeared, abruptly and without trace, Makes you wonder if someone wanted it that way. Description and concept. Tesla's oscillator was a mechanical marvel. Steam entered a small cylinder, driving a piston up and down with incredible precision. That piston was connected to an armature, converting vibration into alternating electrical current. A clean, compact alternative to massive steam turbines. Tesla even experimented with versions that used air cushions and magnetic control to fine-tune the frequency. The result was a generator that didn't rely on rotating parts, but instead on pure rhythmic resonance, a machine that hummed with mathematical perfection. Tesla envisioned it as the future of power generation, portable, efficient, capable of delivering consistent AC electricity to entire cities. Yet, despite its promise, it was never adopted. It vanished from industry almost as soon as it appeared. The earthquake incident, then, came the story that made it infamous. Tesla allegedly attached a small oscillator to a steel building in New York in 1898, and within minutes the entire structure began to tremble. Windows shattered, the street quaked, the police were called. Tesla, realizing what he had done, smashed the device with a sledgehammer before they arrived. Later, he claimed a scaled-up version could split the earth like an apple. Skeptics say it's impossible, that no such resonance could shake a city block. Yet, Tesla's understanding of vibration, frequency, and resonance was decades ahead of his peers. Some reports even mention his labs being raided, his research confiscated, and his notes lost soon after. Coincidence? Maybe. Legacy and conspiracy. Tesla's oscillator was never patented for mass use. The concept simply vanished. Industry chose turbines, investors pulled funding, and Tesla's reputation was gradually eroded until he died penniless. But for those who study him, the question remains: why was such a revolutionary idea buried? A device that could produce power cheaply, or destabilize entire structures through vibration, would have terrified those who profit from control. Maybe Tesla's oscillator didn't fail. Maybe it succeeded, and that's why it disappeared. Because some inventions don't fade into history, they're erased from it.